What's up, guys? It's your girl Stacey Cake, your host for What's High, and today I'm here to share my thoughts about the movie Obsession. So everybody has been raging about this film, and I finally got to go see it. And so today I want to share with you all the villain who I feel like no one is talking about in this movie, and I want to share how this movie seems to be a metaphor for the fate of relationships, romantic relationships, and modern society. So yeah, if you guys like this type of content, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment, and let's get into it. Let's kick it off with the villain that I feel like no one is talking about in this film. And that's the cashier who sold Bear the One Wish Willow. She delivers what is kind of like a very lackluster, low effort kind of warning about the product, but then fails to follow up when he questions her, hey, like, so can you tell me more? Like, what is this? Because obviously, like, he doesn't have any experience with this product. And I say this not to diminish the responsibility Bear has for his actions throughout the film and his unwillingness to let Nikki go, essentially showing us his own obsession with her. So not diminishing his responsibility at all for those actions and his determination to be with this woman. However, there was a responsibility that I feel like this employee for this shop had to answer a customer's questions that kind of led to a series of events that ultimately caused this tragic ending that we see in this movie. She works there. She clearly doesn't want to work. And we've all run into people like this when we've been shopping, when we're doing things. The employee that hates their job, that could really care less, that's busy on the phone doing whatever they're doing, and not really tending to customers and not really informing customers on the things they need to know. And when it's something like this where she clearly had a deeper understanding or a deeper insight, I feel like she did not do her due diligence, especially when she was the one bringing up, hey, this product has caused issues with customers. He didn't ask you anything. You brought it up, and then when he tries to dig deeper, you kind of like, close off and like become shut down and like rude to him. So I feel like she was definitely a villain in this story, because how do you know the things you know and see this shy little guy and just like let him just do this? Mind you, his original intent with purchasing this product was to gift it. And so knowing that he originally came in there for one thing and then leaves with this random One Wish Willow, and you don't provide the proper disclaimer that you started to give voluntarily, you're the villain. You have some responsibility, ethical, moral responsibility in the fate of these characters. I said what I said. I'm standing on it, period. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, because of course, I feel like Ian is obviously a villain too, Bear's friend, because he was sleeping with Nikki and helping this man prepare to plead his case with Nikki. This is supposed to be your homie, your friend. You was trash. You were trash too. Like, let's not let Ian off the hook. He was trash too, because I just feel like a lot of things could have been avoided. And again, don't think I'm letting Bear get off the hook, because he's kind of going to come into play with my next point. So why do I think this film is a metaphor for the fate of modern relationships? I think this metaphor shows in a dramatized way, the ending if we continue on the path that we're approaching dating with, as far as our communication style, our lack of morals, and just all around fear being bigger than love in how we approach dating, in how we deal with each other. As a single woman in 2026, over the age of 25. I've been in a relationship for a long time, and then when I became single again, I just noticed like the men are much more timid than what I was used to prior to my relationship. Like, there were always shy men, but I feel like it has just reached new heights, and it has become normalized for people to take routes to avoid rejection. And this is not saying that rejection doesn't hurt, that people aren't cruel when they reject people, and when the age of social media, that people don't use that as a method to expose others when they take bold steps, or when they try to court someone. So that's not to diminish that, but I do think this has all, in its own connected way, resulted in people like Bear, who will go to extreme lengths to keep someone before they make themselves vulnerable, before they say how they feel, before they risk rejection. They'll make a wish. Granted, I think Bear did this kind of mindlessly, just kind of beating himself up about not being open with Nikki, because he got the sense immediately that she wasn't interested, but he still wanted to kind of get that off his chest. So he just made the wish, I think, kind of in the moment, spontaneously, that like people will do that before they risk being rejected and moving on with their life, because rejection is hard and we don't want to deal with hard things. We are very, I think, as a generation, when I say as a generation, meaning millennials and even Gen Z, just we're kind of exposed to more emotional intelligence than I think prior generations. Notice I didn't say we are more emotionally intelligent, but necessarily we are exposed to more emotional intelligence. So we know the terms, we know the impact of things, we know the risk of things, and things have a bigger ramification socially. Have the opportunity to have a bigger impact socially if we are rejected or single or not having sex or not married by a certain age, all of those things. So I think this film really highlights that, hey, like, obviously in this film, the obsession was Bear's obsession with Nikki, and how despite how bad it got, he couldn't let it go, but he was not yet once vulnerable with her. And I think we never really got to hear his emotions stated to her at any point in the film, other than when he was rehearsing with his two-faced homeboy Ian. Like, we didn't really he never really shared those emotions with Nikki, and that was beating him up. But he was quick to take the opportunity to become physical with her. That he could muster up the courage to have sex with her despite having a feeling that something was off, something was wrong, this wish might have actually came true. You've internalized that at a certain point. You know this at a certain point, that something freaky is going on. She's not consistently happy. Something's off with her, and you're continuing to take advantage of this emotionally and physically. Do I think he could have killed Nikki? No, that would have obviously not ended well. But I think because he made the wish and he knew the ins and outs of that, he did have a responsibility to try to have this thing go differently. And the longer he waited, obviously the worse things got. And I think that kind of shows society today. Like, we play little games in dating where it's like tit for tat, or us doing things with each other and not afraid to be seen as a lover girl or a lover guy, or it's shameful for men to have feelings, or shameful for men to now provide for women, or for women to forgive a man for certain things. Like, it's so much shame that's around stuff that we'll just put on facades, we'll play games until it gets worse. And sometimes the worst isn't the worst in the relationship, it's the bad things that are going on internally from us playing these games with each other that honestly most of us aren't built for. We're just hearing people's opinions online, from podcasts, from social media, and we're hearing it so often that it kind of is brainwashing you. Hence Nikki, it's brainwashing you, and you're becoming something you're not, essentially, and you're hurting in the process, but you know, you're continuing to be exposed to certain things and receive certain messages and feeling like you have to put on this facade to survive. I feel like I could go into more into layers about that, but for the sake of this video, I'm kind of gonna leave that portion there and just say that, you know, in this film we see Bear honestly drag this situation out needlessly. He drags it out where it's a point where he could have gotten help much sooner, but he didn't go get help, spoiler alert, until a homicide had taken place. This girl is tripping out. She's acting supernatural, sliding against walls and just rewinding and all of the things. And you're still talking about what's so bad about being with me. Let it go, sir. Let it go. Like at this point, I feel like if I gotta do all that, I don't even want you. Period. If I had made a wish, done some demonic tasks, intentionally or unintentionally, to be with you, and the real you was breaking out and still doesn't want to be with me, it's not meant to be. And I think this again highlights that the result of a fear of rejection is more harmful than what I think we realize as a generation. It's just like it drags things out. It causes needless hurt in interactions because pride and ego is at the forefront. And that was really Bear's issue. Pride and ego was at the forefront for this man. And I think, you know, we get to see him as this kind of cowardly guy who becomes a victim of his own wish, but Nikki was still the primary victim in this. And it was a result of his actions that he could have let go at any moment. But that fear that has carried him through this entire movie leads him to an untimely fate and ends up hurting the person that he cares about the most. Like it ends up hurting Nikki the most at the end. She's left with 2 dead bodies. She's unintentionally committed murder twice. Like she has lost control and she's left to clean up this mess that she never wanted in the beginning because he did not have the courage enough to put it on the line, get rejected, move on, and get with sis who really liked him. And it's really unfortunate that other people suffered due to fear. And I think bigger picture here, this message speaks to, like, I'm a Christian woman, so like this message speaks to how fear can be so debilitating and just ruin our lives and take us off course from the plans that, you know, that are before us that God has for you. And I just feel like this movie just screamed that to me. Like fear is crazy. And I've experienced interactions in my own life. I've realized the way fear has sneakily integrated itself into some of my thought patterns to the point that you don't even recognize it sometimes. It's so sneaky. And I'm not going to start preaching, you guys, but just really look at how fear is impacting the decisions you make because it's so sneaky. And I think this film really highlights that in a beautiful way because we have fear from the beginning with Bear to the very end that leads to his fate. And it not only made him suffer, but it made everyone around him suffer. And what started off as something so innocent spiraled out of control crazy. And that, I think in that, it also shows us that obsession isn't always obvious. Obsession looks different. And I love the modern take on obsession here, looking at her pictures. You know, one of the things I loved in this film was when Nikki becomes obsessed with Bear, we see her kind of in portrait mode in the background behind him, just staring while he's talking to Ian in the music shop. But prior to that scene, prior to him making a wish, he's portrayed doing it in a much more innocent, less creepy way, but he's admiring her just the same and kind of doing similar things. She just has a creepier smile and creepier music to go on with it because we know this is against her will. But I just think this film masterfully showed the layers or the different looks that fear can have and that obsession can have. But I thought this film was wonderful. I'm a lore girl, so I felt like I would have loved to know more lore about the One Wish Willow, and what was actually going on with Nikki. Like, not that you couldn't infer, but just like a 1 or 2 line kind of explainer, to kind of say like, yeah, like this demonic entity is now permanently here, or this demonic entity was now sent back to hell after the curse stopped, or something like that, you know? But overall, I thought it was a great film. So I'm gonna rate this film a 5 out of 5 flames. I rarely give that, but it was so like surprisingly good. Because sometimes when y'all be telling me stuff is good, it don't really be that good. Like I kind of be skeptical when everybody's praising stuff, because we just have different tastes, you know? And I feel like I'm a very lenient movie critic. I love movies, I love films, I love seeing people's ideas visualized. So I'm pretty lenient, but sometimes y'all be missing the mark. But y'all did not with this one. This was tea, and I am so excited, and I think I may go see it again, because there's so much to explore in this film. But right here, I'm gonna wrap it up so I can go get my doggy. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment if you like this type of content. And I'll see you guys next time.